Okay, well, today I want to talk about dark humor, I guess. The need for that, I guess, as a human, or just the need for humor in general. It doesn't have to be dark, but kind of that's what we're talking about is making the case for dark humor. Um, a couple of reasons this is coming up now. One, there's a quote that I'm going to read. Well, two, but one specifically that I've been using for a couple of years now that talks about dark humor. Well, talks about humor in general. And then also, so my birthday is coming up in less than a week, and I was just out earlier today scouting this this really gnarly descent um, close to Fort Whoop in Lethbridge that I want to ride on my birthday morning. We'll see what happens with that. Yeah. Anyway, there'll be footage of it in the vlog later, and then there'll be the footage of me maybe doing it or maybe not. And I was just bringing it up now, and why I wanted to have this conversation now was because like the whole time that I was looking at it, I was just like joking about like, well, it's gonna be my birthday, and then that's it for me. Then it's done. Like, was joking about dying on this gnarly little trail or whatever we want to call it. Um, and yeah, I don't know. That just got me thinking about using humor and dark humor, and why is that a device or a tool that we use, like obviously to like relieve tension and pressure and relieve fear and things like that. But I think it goes a lot deeper than that, and I think it's incredibly positive and useful and interesting. Um, and yeah, let's talk about it. So this quote. Um, so if someone has the source of this quote specifically, I would love to hear it. Because so I don't watch Oprah, okay, and I don't really enjoy Tracy Morgan's comedy that much at all. But for some reason, I was on YouTube years ago. Like I don't know how many now, maybe 5 or more years ago. I would probably yeah. It had to have been yeah. Anyway, 5 or more years ago. I saw Tracy Morgan, like a YouTube clip of Tracy Morgan on YouTube, um, a YouTube clip of Tracy Morgan talking to Oprah. This is what I mean. I don't remember why I was even looking at it, what I was watching. I was just kind of going down the rabbit hole one night on YouTube, as you do, and then I saw this thing, and he was talking about his grandfather. So he attributes this quote to his grandfather. And I found it to be actually really powerful, and I use it all the time and think about it often. Um, and just so that I don't get any words wrong, because this was verbatim what he said, your sense of humor is the knife which you cut through the wilderness of despair. And I found that, like, really powerful. I really enjoyed that quote quite a lot. So let's kind of unpack that a bit, I guess. I just lost my bookmark for the other quote I wanted to talk about later, so that's fun. Your sense of humor is the knife which you cut through the wilderness of despair. So to me, I mean, that seems really plain. I mean, it's said beautifully and beautiful imagery and stuff too, but I mean, it's again, using humor as a tool, right? That having a sense of humor is essential for survival. And I think that, that's legit. I found, like, I attribute it to dark humor specifically because I think, like, I don't know, like if you can't go dark, then your humor only goes so far, and not far enough to maybe deal with certain situations or what have you. Um, it feels really comfortable to me to like joke about stuff and have like dark humor, especially like I mean like the friends I have are generally for the most part can joke about things like that, and that's part of what makes us great friends is that chemistry of we have the same sense of humor for the most part, that we can joke about certain things, and that it's not necessarily that nothing's off limits, it's all about context and a lot of things, right? But the fact that we can value that, like, having a dark sense of humor is appropriate, that it's not offensive, that it's helpful, that it's a tool, all those things. Like, talking about it so, like, formally makes it, like, not fun anymore, right? To be like, your sense of humor is a tool that you can use to... But, I mean, it's this real quote that I'm like, maybe that's why... And I wrote this line about it, actually. Well, not about that specifically, but whatever. I had a section that I wrote, and that thing is on Instagram, if you go look there for it. where I was talking about like when did I start noticing like this sense of humor developing, or this dark sense of humor, and like that it probably didn't start developing until I was in my like stages of puberty, probably because I didn't need it to develop, because I didn't know the pain of life yet. um, and again, that's yeah. I had like a couple. I think there was a couple pages about it that I wrote and posted on Instagram on my FK Arts, and it was just talking about like yeah. I mean that's why that sense of humor didn't develop until then, because it didn't need to develop until then. That the pain of life wasn't a reality yet, so I didn't need that sense of humor in order to actually deal with it and to cope and just to live as a human on this earth. And that's like I said, the thing's powerful to me because I'm like it's just obviously biased or whatever, but I mean like it's it's a I can't remember the name of the device now, about that it obviously reinforces what I think to be true anyway, or it um reinforces what I like it's a type of bias, and I can't remember the name. Anyway, um yeah, it kind of goes hand in hand with some other thoughts, schools of thought and stuff. Like Nietzsche had this quote as well. That's probably more well known than that. Perhaps I know best why it is man alone who laughs. He suffers so deeply that he had to invent laughter. Perhaps I know best why it is man alone who laughs. He suffers so deeply that he had to invent laughter. And again, I really find a lot of truth in that statement. I mean, it's really connected to the other one. I think that, with the Tracy Morgan's grandpa or whatever, he's talking about using your sense of humor as a tool to get out of these dark times that, and like for me, dark times call for, dark humor. But to use your sense of humor to be able to laugh about stuff, to be able to be jovial or what have you, or to take things lighter, not be so serious and anxious and whatever, to like move through pain. And especially from that context of Tracy Morgan being like a comedian, and a comedic actor, that there's some comedians, and I'm not really familiar with his stand-up. The little bit that I've seen I didn't like, so I just didn't really look into anymore. But there's a lot of comedians, like stand-up comedians, that use, like to me the best ones, use use their pain of life in their comedy. It's a source for pain. Sorry, the pain is a source for comedy, and it's also a way to move through that pain and move through life, in a way to be able to talk about that kind of thing, to turn it, to change the context of it, to change it into something else that isn't this horrible experience that you can't get over. It's like, no, now we're laughing about it. That's just so useful, and I really enjoy that. And when I see comedians that really are talking about real stuff and using their comedy to get through painful scenarios in their life, and to be able to laugh about it and talk about it with people. And then again, as for Nietzsche, saying that yeah, I know why like men laugh, and that's because we had to invent laughter because we suffer so much. And I think that's true too. Like, it's, again, they kind of go really hand in hand, that this suffering requires something, and it requires us to laugh and to find things funny, and to it's not just about fun. Like laughter, they say laughter's the best medicine. Like, but I mean, it just goes beyond those cliches for me, where I've really found these things so true, and I so much appreciate the company that I keep, that allows for dark humor, that allows for real discussions, and then also in those moments being able to make jokes, being able to laugh about things, being able to be lighthearted about serious things. And again, there's always a context, and there's sometimes it's a sensitive time or whatever, so you have to gauge that. But I mean, there's definitely groups of people in my life that it seems like almost nothing's off limits, and it's just it's we understand each other and our context and personal histories, and understand each other's values and standards and stuff, so we know what's a joke and we know what isn't. And yeah, like I just really appreciate that. Again, those two sentiments, those two quotes there, I definitely feel like are strong and accurate and real. And again, I appreciate them so much, because I'm like, yeah, that's legit. Like that's how we move through the pain of life. Is through our sense of humor. We use it as a coping mechanism. we move through life with that attached at the hip. And I don't want to say we as in everybody, but I mean I do. I mean, there's times where things are so painful that, like I don't feel like laughing. I don't feel motivated to do anything constructive. If you're in a really depressed state, like it's not going to work every time in that way. But I mean, it is so helpful just as this casual thing. And again, in those pages that I wrote before, I had talked about the fact that I think that that's, like when I was trying to think back, like when did I really start? When did I really start using that sense of humor? I keep talking about those things that I wrote. I'm just going to go and get it. Wow, I don't know where this is. Oh, here it is, November 18th. Let's see what I wrote here. At the top, I kind of have that quote by Tracy Morgan's grandpa, if that's really the source of it. I was playing a scenario in my head, and in it, I made a joke, or rather was about to, but thought better of it. I can't make that joke to that person, is what I thought. I thought of the innocence that can be found in youth. We used to just say things. The filter was a thin veil. Did we already know the pain of life? That is why we can joke so carelessly or freely now in good company, isn't it? To excuse mortality for a few moments, to politely usher it into a waiting room until it rudely interrupts life once again. It is easiest to forget when amongst company. I feel mortal when I am alone. Every living creature dies alone. Yeah. Well, sorry for the downer at the end there, but anyway, where else do we go here? I feel like this thing cuts really weird. Oh, there we go. Continued. And I like being alone. At times I feel alive, at times too alive, and with company I feel love, the antidote of feeling life, to counteract the poison of life. I was in good company as a child and youth at times and could forget about life. Perhaps I hadn't come to know it yet until 14. That is when I began to truly feel pain, and not long after felt love, the kind that matters. I'm sure before then I did feel longing. The laughing was still present, but perhaps the absurdity was not as present. It wasn't as pure or natural, real, genuine. Now I run from being alone. The balance is not ideal. Idealism, youth's final luxury. Some of these are quotes. Like that's a quote from Quills. Writing makes me feel less alone. It's learnings. It's purposeful learnings of legacy, and you are reading. And as long as you are not me, I live inside you right now. And then parentheses, it says immortality. So this is going into a whole other thing. But again, if you've been watching the vlog from the very beginning, you kind of know I started off with this whole thing of legacy and mortality and exploring that. And like this was written back in November, and that really, explores that stuff. November 18th. That's, and I think that's the thing that I needed to read right now to remind myself too that's the other thing is that I get to leave the pain of life for a while or what have you. I get to leave all that behind, and I'm in good company and can laugh about stuff and completely forget about anything. Like, we can be talking about things that are painful without even feeling them because we're joking about them. Like, I'm not feeling the pain of that experience that I'm making fun of. I'm completely leaving it behind, and it's evolving, and the context is changing, and I can be in that moment just laughing with people, and it's I don't know, it's a beautiful thing, and I'd never take it for granted. Like, those are my best times to me, are sitting around with, in my mind I keep thinking of my like bandmates and stuff, and just sitting after jamming or something, getting into a room and just like talking and laughing, and that's it. Those are some of the best times of my life, I feel. And it's interesting because they're not like, I can't point and remember the date or what was said, or like I know in the general vein of how the conversations went, but I don't remember exactly the things that were said and how they were said and what was so funny and what made me like, start wheezing with laughter. But yeah, those are those. I don't know. It's healing. I feel like so corny talking about it, But I don't know. I'm grateful for laughter. That's super corny too? Is that what I'm saying here? I guess I don't know. I'm recognizing that laughter and a sense of humor and having a dark sense of humor and all those things are this amazing tool and coping mechanism. That again, it's a beautiful thing, and those quotes really highlight that beauty. And then that thing that I wrote was just a reminder too that like yeah, that helps me escape mortality. Sometimes being so in the moment with people that I forget about everything else, and that I can just sit there and laugh with people, and that is so helpful. It's a really short conversation for a really simple topic, but nonetheless, one I feel strongly about. With that, we'll see you on another time.